Well, hi, everybody. It's great to be back with you. I'm Andy Greenberg, and with me is...
I'm Carol.
And last name?
I'm Greenberg.
What we're going to be talking about today is going to be of interest to you and everybody, and that is the upcoming elections. Yeah, I know. I know what you're thinking, just like she did. You heard enough. I got it. I understand it. We're not going to talk politics. We're not going to talk Democratic or Republic. We're not going to talk issues, so just sit back and relax. I should have told you. What we are going to be talking about is the following. What is the Jewish viewpoint on us voting? And you're going to be surprised. And we're not going to mention
I'm
again.
surprised that there's even a viewpoint. True.
There she goes. So here's my question to you.
What?
Are we guests in this country or not?
We're citizens. We're American citizens of this country. We're Jewish, but we're American citizens. We're not guests of this country.
Well, before you say that, now where should we be living according to the Torah?
According to stuff, we should be living in Israel.
Right.
But we're not.
So?
I see where you might think we're guests, but I don't.
Oh, I'm not saying I arrive at a conclusion. I'm just asking the question.
I don't think we're guests.
I'm posing the question. So what you're then thinking is we're permanent residents.
What?
I mean, if you're not a guest, then you're a permanent resident.
Yes, this is my permanent residence.
And what is the allegiance to? Is the allegiance to Israel, Judaism, or America? Just wait up. What do you think?
I'm an American Jew.
You're an American Jew, but you're not a Jewish.
I'm a Jewish American.
Well, which one is it? Which one is it?
Okay, then I'm going to define myself by my religion, and I'm a Jewish American.
Now, do you find yourself about your religion first, or your national, or where you live, or your country of residence first? Come on, we only have an hour.
Okay, I'm going to say I'm a Jewish American.
Okay, so as a Jewish American, then you're a guest here.
No, I live here. I live here.
So this is a very confusing issue, but you might be asking yourself, where is he going with this? Well,
where is he going with this?
Because remember, the Torah says, we're not going to get involved in spirituality or Torah, but the Torah says that we, in fact, will be living in a diaspora. And when we live in a diaspora, meaning outside of Israel, what are our responsibilities? In other words, are we just a guest here, which means we let things happen as they happen and we don't do anything about it? Or do we have an obligation to get involved in the elections and in government and in everything else that's involved? So, Carol, what do you think? Do we have an obligation as Jewish people?
We do. We have an obligation. We have an obligation.
Do we have an obligation to be part of the problem or part of the solution?
We have an obligation to be part of the solution.
Aha. Well, let's see where we get some of our texts from and some of our ideas from. So I'm going to share some things with you, and let's see what your original thought is. And of course, I'm not going to share that with you. So hold on, I didn't press the right button. Let's try that again. Here we go. That's what I want to share with you. And here we go. So let's go ahead and start with this statement here, okay? This is from Jeremiah. Now, just relax a moment. And it says that you're going to be carried away from Jerusalem unto Babylon, or other countries for that matter. We're supposed to build houses and dwell in them. All right, we did that. And plant gardens. Well, we did that. And eat from the fruit of them. Well, we did that. We're supposed to take wives. Hey, I'm glad I found you. Have sons and daughters. Well, I don't have any daughters. And take wives for your sons. My son's married. And give your daughters to husbands, etc. Let's skip a little bit. And seek the peace of the city, whether I cause you to be carried away captive, and pray unto the Lord for it. For in peace thereof you shall have peace. Now, I understand we're not captives here. I got that. But it also says we should seek peace. Do we do so by participating in the elections?
Yes, hopefully we do. To cast a vote and have our opinion counted.
All right, so that says that, okay, maybe we have an obligation to be part of the solution, even if we are captives. Now, I want you to remember that, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit later with some things that are going to surprise you. Now, let's go on to the next one. Here we go. In Pirkei Avot, which is, in fact, the ethics of our fathers, which is found in the Talmud, written by rabbis. There's one rabbi, can you pronounce that?
Rabbi Hanina?
Very good.
Hanina.
Yeah, Hanina.
Hanina.
Hanina. Very few people can. Rabbi Hanina, the deputy high priest, says, whoa, pray for the welfare of the government, for if not for the fear of it, man would swallow his fellow alive. Yee! So, what do you think? Should we be fearful of the government? Should we support the government? And is this Rabbi Hanina true that without government, we would eat each other alive? Meaning we would have destruction, we would have problems, we would have a lawless society. And what he said, does that apply to you today, right here in South Florida?
Yes, we need the Lord because it will be every man for himself. Do we fear government? We should support the government, but on the other side, I think we fear the government because we sometimes feel like the government is doing things behind our back and then didn't ask us our opinion.
Well, that's a dictatorship. That's not a democracy.
Well,
so, but according to the first statement, here's where it gets interesting. According to the first statement, if we live in a dictatorship, right? What happens if we live in a dictatorship? Basically, it says, even if we're carried away captive, for the peace thereof you shall have peace. You're supposed to support a dictatorship.
Wow. Well, if you don't support a dictatorship, bad things will happen to you anyway.
So it should be phony support?
No, but
But what?
But if you rise against them, things will happen to you.
And we should pray for the welfare of the government. Now, he didn't say in these words here it should be a dictatorship or a democracy. So therefore, if we are to support a dictatorship, what do you think our responsibilities are to support a democracy?
We need to do everything to follow the process.
So a lot of people have been saying, Judaism is dying, nobody's getting together, we don't know, this, that, and the other. I'm not going to talk about that. But listen to this. Of all the ethnic and religious groups in the United States of America, if I remember the numbers right, 68% of all Jewish people vote.
That's not surprising to me.
Why not?
Because we think of ourselves as an educated people and keeping up with the times. So that's not too surprising for me.
Oh, so highly educated people vote?
Yeah, I think so.
There are no highly educated people in other religions?
Of
Are you
course
saying
they are.
68% of us?
Of course they are. But you're talking about the Jews, so I'm just telling you my feeling about that.
Aha. All right. So 68. So are we following Talmud and Torah, or are we just doing this because we care? And when we vote, do we vote for Jewish principles, or what do we vote for? We'll find out a little bit later. But so far, what we're learning is, yes, we are supposed to vote and be part of the community that we live in, which I think is one of the reasons why we vote so much. Do you agree with that so far, Carol?
I do.
All right, let's continue on. And let's see what else they say. Let me small this up a little bit. Aha! In the Torah, it says, you shall appoint magistrates and officials for your tribes in all the settlements that the Lord your God is giving you, and they shall govern the people with justice.
Do justice.
I'm sorry, do justice. Thank you very much. Do justice. Now, that's an interesting statement. Does that refer to Israel only, or does that refer to every place you live in? Because it says your God is giving you. So did God give us South Florida and Palm Beach County and Boynton Beach and all that? Or do they just mean, or Lake Worth, or do they just mean, or Boca? Oh, okay, we got it. Or does it mean this land of Israel? What do you think?
I think they were talking about the state of Israel.
The state of Israel. So then, therefore, we don't have to be involved with the magistrates and officials. We don't have to vote.
No, we have to be. We live here. If we don't consider this our permanent home, we are living in it, and we need to support it.
Okay, so what she's suggesting is because we're living here in relatively peace now, that is a land that God gave us to live, because if not, we could be in worse shape.
Right.
But on the other hand, let's go back to Germany, and let's go back to Russia, and let's go back to the old Roman times, and let's go back to Babylonia. What would we have as our responsibility? Should we, in fact, have been involved in the process? And if we were not involved in the process, should we, in fact, still honor the process, even though they were persecuting us?
I don't know if we were allowed to be involved in the process.
Should we have revolted?
We probably a peaceful protest. I don't know.
You know, it would have happened then, don't
Yes,
you?
I know.
I don't think it'd be too.
Off with
I don't
your
think
head.
it'd be too. You see, these things are a little bit more complicated than we originally thought, aren't
Yes,
they?
they are.
So therefore, if we live in a democracy, then therefore you believe we should have the responsibility to uphold that democracy.
I do.
And get out and vote.
I do.
Yep. All right, let's see what else the text and everything else is telling us, because we will be surprised. Let's move on. Here we go. And let me move on here. There's a fellow by the name of Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rabbi Moshe, modern guy, not even an old guy, and he wrote a letter in 1984. Okay, let's see what he says. On reaching the shores of the United States, Jews found a safe haven. The rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights have allowed us the freedoms to practice our religion without interference and to live in this republic in safety. Here it goes. A fundamental principle of Judaism is hakarat hatov, recognizing benefits afforded us and giving expression to our appreciation. Therefore, it is incumbent upon each Jewish citizen to participate in the democratic system, which guards the freedom we enjoy. The most fundamental responsibility of each individual is to register and vote. Before I continue, did you know that now became, according to this guy, Rabbi, it now became a responsibility to vote?
I did not know that.
But why did you start voting when you were 18?
Because it was my right. I wanted to have a say in what was going on.
Mhm.
It was my right to vote.
So did you need a Feinstein to tell you to do that?
No.
So why should Rabbi Feinstein bother to write that letter?
Maybe at that point nobody was voting.
Could be, maybe not. And maybe Jews began to question, are we guests in this country, permanent residents? Do we have the responsibility? Because please remember, way back when, this country did not welcome us. They didn't. They had quotas. They had quotas in school. They turned away that ship St. Louis, which was full of Jews. Sometimes it was tough to get in here. But now that we are here, we have the responsibility. But here's my question before we go on. Are we taking the responsibility too far?
And what do you mean?
Ooh, take a look at how many Jewish senators there are, Jewish assembly people there are. I'm not quite sure there's that many Jewish governors, but at least from the main government part, look how many Jewish people are on the Supreme Court. Look how many Jewish people are in cabinets of very high positions. Are we taking it too far?
No.
Or are we doing what we are supposed to do as Jews?
We're doing what we're supposed to do as Jews.
Where does it say we should be in government?
It just said before, you said that's your responsibility is to support the government. So how can you support the government if you're not part of the government?
Okay, there you go. There you go. So you also have a responsibility, which we'll get to later, about once you're in a position of power, should you be fair and justice?
You should be fair and just.
Yes. And let's see what else we can learn from all this as we go back to some of the information. And here we go. Therefore, I urge all members of the Jewish community to fulfill their obligations by registering as soon as possible and by voting. By this, we can express our appreciation and contribute to the continued security of our community. Carol, let me ask you a question. Of course, I would ask you these questions if we were closer, so she's your sounding board. So I don't want anybody...
Hope I'm doing a good job for you.
I don't want anybody to think I'm picking on her, okay? And as you know by now, these are not rehearsed. So let me ask you this question. Let's assume you were not voting. You never voted. You never voted for
Okay.
whatever reason. Okay?
Okay.
And then here this guy, somehow this guy Feinstein gets a hold of you in 1984, and he writes you a letter, or he writes an open letter to the community. Would that letter have impacted you to register and vote?
I believe it would have.
Why?
Because it would have opened up my eyes by saying someone cared that much, and if we're here and we're here permanently, and I have a chance to do something and be counted in, yeah.
Do you do that as a Jewish American or as an American Jew?
Well, that, I think you do that as an American Jew.
But he wrote it to the Jewish
I
Americans.
understand that, but he to say, to show our appreciation that we're in America.
Yeah, but who did he write it to?
He wrote it to the Jewish population.
Jewish Americans or American Jews?
He wrote it to the Jewish Americans.
No, don't give in. If you
He wrote it. Okay, but you're writing the letter to thank America that as a Jew you're in the country and you're welcome.
Okay, so we got that pretty straight.
Yes.
Now let me ask you this question.
Question.
If we lived in Russia and there was a czar in Russia that in fact was a despot, and there were many, killing Jews, pogroms, throwing them out, and Feinstein wrote a letter that we're supposed to support that government. And up to that point, you did not support that government because they were out to get you. Would Feinstein's letter have shown you to support that government?
Okay, that is a complete different situation.
Why?
They are in, because their life is in danger. I mean, if they support them, then they're doing it under the guise of just getting through, because they know that it's a terrible government.
Yeah.
And they know that things will happen to them.
Yeah, so what are you trying to say?
So what?
So do you participate and support the government? So in other words, if in fact the czar comes to the shtetl, okay, do you get out there with a sign that says, "We support the czar"? Or do you get, I didn't finish the question. Or do you go out with a sign that says, "Kill the czar," or "Jews against the czar"?
No, you support the czar or you will be killed.
Do you mean it when you support the
Not
czar, or you're doing that
necessarily.
just to stay alive?
You're doing that just to stay alive.
So what do you think? What do you think happened years past? What do you think? Well, let's find out, because this is going to surprise you. And here we go. That, in fact, were some really interesting questions. So back in 1914, there was czars that were creating big problems. And, you know, there's a prayer that we say on Saturday mornings, Shabbos mornings, that says support the government.
Yes, I know that prayer.
Prayer for our country.
Right.
Very nice prayer.
Very nice prayer.
What did they pray in 1914 in Vilna? Well, let's see. Here it is. You want to read this, or you want me to?
I can read it.
Go ahead.
May he who grants salvation to kings and dominion to rulers, whose kingdom is the kingdom spanning all eternity, who releases David his servant from the evil sword, who places a road in the sea and a path in the mighty waters. May he bless, protect, guard, assist, elevate, exalt, and lift upward our master Tsar Nikolai Alexandrovich, with his wife, the Honorable Tsarina Alexandra Fedorovna, their son, the Crown Prince Alexei Nikolaevich, and his mother, the Honorable Tsarina Maria Feodorovna, and the entire house of our kings. May their glory be exalted. May the King of Kings in his mercy give him life and protect him, and save him from every trouble, woe, and injury. May nations submit under his feet, and may his enemies fall before him, and may he succeed in whatever he endeavors. May the King of Kings in his mercy grant compassion in his heart, and the heart of all his advisors, to do favors for us and for all Israel our brethren. In his days and in our days, may Judah be saved, and may Israel dwell securely, and may the Redeemer come to Zion, and so may it be his will, and we say amen.
Whoa!
Oh boy, talk about loading on the sugar.
Whoa. So explain what you mean by that.
Well, obviously they were trying to protect themselves, so they like loaded it up with like if he had enemies, his enemies would fall to his feet. And in there that he wrote in, but protect Israel and us. If we are enamored of you, so do this for us.
Aha.
Aha.
And what do you think the real reason for this prayer was? If you were in a shtetl, in the synagogues, hiding.
Because you don't want to be picked on. So then if they see that you're supporting them, they're going to leave you alone.
Mm-hmm. So there's two reasons. Number one, yes. Number two, because it was a dictatorship, the army would come in, look at the prayer books. If the prayer book said, down with the czar, but when they open up the prayer book and they got all of this stuff here, whoops, there it is. Now, let me ask you this question. This is a toughie. We have an election coming up. The most contentious election in the history of the United States, if not the world. I'm not going to talk candidates. No, we're not going. But if your candidate loses, would you pray for that candidate's welfare? And what do you think Judaism would say to do?
Judaism would say to do that.
Would you follow Judaism?
Depends.
Come on. Depends on what?
I don't know. You know, people are not tolerant. People are not tolerant.
Well, then they're being anti-Jewish.
So be it.
Then you're no longer a Jewish American. Are you? Then you're no longer a Jewish American.
So why do you have to pray? If he loses, why do you have to pray for him?
Because what do you mean? Why do you have to?
And he lost. It's done. It's like you don't want to
pray.
Lost.
You don't want to pray for his, because you know what's going to happen if your candidate doesn't win. You're going to get upset. You're going to riot. You're going to talk. You're going to get upset. Heated arguments like we had the past 4 years.
Okay, so what good does praying for him do?
Well, because it teaches the rest of the Jews, hey, we had our vote. This is the dude that won, and now we got to support that dude until we get another chance. You don't like that. You don't like that at all. But that, according to this, is the Jewish way to do things.
I see.
And you don't like it.
I don't necessarily agree with it.
I
wouldn't be, if it's like winners and losers, but you don't necessarily have to pray for your loser.
Well, wait a minute. Would it pray for the welfare of the government?
But that's the new government.
Well, it's still the government.
Okay.
You don't like this, do you? No. Okay.
Man's still going to swallow his fellow alive.
What do you mean by that?
Really? We've lost law and order, but we're not getting into that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We're not getting into that because you're right. Yeah, all right.
Right.
So you're a strict fundamentalist. You want law and order.
No, I want law and order.
All right, here we go. Now let's see what else we can do. In 1826.
1826.
Right in New York City, there was another prayer that was developed for the country. Watch this one. You want me to read this one, or you want to take it?
All right. Whichever.
All right, here we go. This one I'm gonna expand. It's a little big. All right, but that's just the way it is. And it says, a prayer for our rulers. He who granteth salvation unto the kings, of course, God, and dominion unto princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who's delivered his servant David, sound familiar? From a destructive sword, who maketh a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters. May he bless, preserve, guard, exalt, and highly aggrandize. I pronounced that right?
Aggrandize, yeah. Sounds like the prayer we read before.
Yeah, now they're changing it. The president and vice president of the Union, the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, the governor and lieutenant governor, the people of the state represented in Senate and Assembly, and the magistrates of the city.
Magistrates.
Yeah, magistrates of the city. Whatever. Okay. All right. Now, what do you think about that so far? Well, we're getting real deep. So does that mean if you don't support the Senate, if you don't support the House of Representatives, if you don't support the governor, then lieutenant governor, you're going to say the prayer?
If you want the government, you should say the prayer, because maybe the prayer will help the government to run smoothly.
Do you think the country would be more unified if we followed some of these Jewish traits that once the elections are over, we all bond together in a common cause and support the will of the majority?
I do.
Is that a role of Jews in an election?
Is that a role of Jews in the election?
Which is what we're talking about here.
To bring peace, you mean?
To, at least within our own group, to stop arguing with each other about who the right person is and isn't, after the election. We can do everything we want during the election, but once it's done, let's get together and say, okay, fine, this is the guy. Let's do whatever we can to support the individual. But watch this.
Okay.
The president and vice during the recess. Why isn't this going up? Okay. The president and the we're stuck. The president and the vice president of the United States of America, the governor. I'm going to go off a second and see if I can fix that. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Here we go. Try again. No, it didn't work. Okay, big problem. Moving on. Okay. And anyway, may the Supreme King of Kings in his infinite preserve them, grant them life, deliver them from all manner of trouble and anger. May the danger. May the Supreme King of Kings exalt and agatize them. All right, so that's what we are referring to here. And what do you think? Is that the right thing to do?
It is the right thing to do.
Why is that the right thing to do?
Because we want to, if we have a government, we want the government to run smoothly, and we want to support them so they can do their job. Mm-hmm. And we hope that they represent the people.
So which of these three prayers do you like better, if any one of them?
I thought the one about the star was over the top.
The one from the star was over the top?
No, the praising this one and praising that one was over the top.
Yeah. Okay, but so it's definitely the wrong thing to do.
It was over the top, but I understood why they did it at that time. They were preserving themselves. Yeah. So they were protecting themselves, I should say.
Regrettably, I'm having difficulty getting oh, here it is. Maybe not. What is going on? Please bear with me here. There we go. Now, here's what we do now. Make sure I finish this. There we go. Did I finish it? Yeah. Okay. I almost got it all. His infinite counselors of benevolence. We made that point. Now, here's what we currently pray in the conservative movement. Prayer Sim Shalom. Our God and God, most of us are familiar with this. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its governments, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah that they may minister all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. So here's what they're not doing. They are not mentioning the exact titles. So they condensed it. In other words, vice president, senator.
I like that, though. It's a general thing. Yes, I like that.
Well, watch this. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. Now it gets different. May citizens of all races and creeds form a common bond forge a common bond in true harmony. That's the point. That's what we need to do. That's why the prayer was changed. You think of this whole thing with the elections is just leading up to it, that we have a responsibility? We have a responsibility to bond together, to banish hatred.
Yeah, but that's not what's happening.
That's the point.
Yes.
That may citizens, see where it says may citizens, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. What would happen if we all went back and took pride and glory in our country once the election is announced and the candidates who were selected by the majority win?
It would be nice, but I don't see that happening.
Good, but a good prayer, right?
A great prayer.
Well, wait. Why don't you see it happening?
Because people are divided.
Yeah.
And they don't, and with all this nice words, it isn't being followed.
But what if we Jews follow the examples of our prayers?
So you need to gather a following, get people to listen.
Yeah, or stop arguing, right?
Or what?
Stop arguing with each other.
Yeah.
You see what I find interesting? We prayed for the success of the Tsar. Okay, I got it. We prayed, we then went a little bit further, and now we're here in our modern times, and we need to do the same thing. May this land under your providence be for an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom. Freedom right here in the United States. Helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Well, there it goes. There it goes. Now, look at this one. This is the Mishkan Tefillah, a prayer for our country. We're going to do one more, then go on to another area. Carol, you want to read that, please?
O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Yes. Now, of these 4 prayers that we just went through, which one do you like the best? This one? And I ask you the same question.
I think I like the last one now.
You like the last one now?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Because of what?
Because it just,
All right, because go ahead.
because it just talks about the peace. It's very simple and I like it.
Okay. So the point here being is that we have the responsibility to vote. We have the responsibility amongst us Jews to unify and support the leader, just like we learned from the supporting of the Tsar, even though we didn't like it. Because you know what leadership is? It's very interesting. Leadership says a great leader is the one who makes friends out of their enemies.
True.
That's something.
Keep your
Yeah.
enemies close, and
Yeah,
keep
you
your
got it.
enemies
I
close
can't remember
to you.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to something else that's very interesting. So we're voting for the Senate, we're voting for the president, we're voting for the Congress. We do have a Supreme Court. We have local government. And here's something interesting. Where do you think these ideals and ideas came from in order to create the United States government as it exists today?
I think they came from the Torah, but I'm not sure why and how.
Okay. She's right. She's a scholar. She's a scholar.
I'm not
you
sure.
You won't believe this. You will not believe this. I'm telling you. So do you remember how many tribes there were?
There were 12 tribes.
12 tribes. Exactly right. And I'm trying to remember. I don't remember this at all. I wasn't even thinking about it. It just hit me. I don't remember. How many states were the original states? Were the 12? I don't remember. I should have looked it up. It just hit me. I wonder if there's a relation. I don't know if any historians out there, maybe, I don't know. But I'm going to move on. I think they were 12 founders, but I never thought of that before. Anyway, let me go back to something. So how did they know how to prepare and to develop the government? Please remember the following, that when the pilgrims came over, guess what? They had spent a year living with Orthodox Sephardic Jews, and these were not Jewish people, these pilgrims, and they learned about Jewish laws, Jewish customs, Jewish Torah, Jewish Talmud, and they brought that education with them to the United States. Don't believe me? Watch this. The first 15 capital laws of New England included the 7 Noahide laws of the Torah, and when they had the laws of Massachusetts that were developed, what they did they had 73 laws, 37 came directly from the Torah. And in case you didn't know, many government leaders, including Thomas Jefferson and I believe Alexander Hamilton, spoke Hebrew. And there were some people, I'm not going to get into this discussion, that said Alexander Hamilton was Jewish, but I'm not quite sure. So there is a bit of a background here. So listen to this very carefully. We have the House of Representatives. Where did they get the idea of the House of Representatives? From the Torah. And it says the following: select for yourselves men who are wise, understanding, and known to your tribes, and I will appoint them as leaders. Aha! Select. In other words, each tribe had to have, what's the word?
Select.
No.
A leader.
Representatives.
Representative.
Aha! And where did they all meet? Guess where? In a house.
Oh, the House of Representatives.
House of Representatives.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yeah. So the whole idea of selecting individuals right here, and you don't believe me? It's okay. Deuteronomy 1:13. Chapter 1, line 13. Interesting. Now, watch this. The word election comes from the word elect. Got that? The word select, what's the root of the word select? Drop the S.
Election.
Elect means men of high intellectual and moral character. Now, I know you're laughing. I got it. You see it? Because you look at these people in the House of Representatives. They got no brains and they lousy morale. You know whose fault that is?
The people?
Darn right. What do we keep on re-electing him for? Give me a break. If you don't like the dude, stop re-electing him. Or dudess. Stop re-electing them. There are people who are in Congress for 16, 17, 18 years, haven't done a darn thing. They got no brains. What happens when they come up from re-election? What do?
We re-elect them.
I don't get it. Anyway, so you need somebody that's wise, understanding. And that's the House of Representatives. Okay. Seek out from among all the people men with leadership ability, God-fearing men. Religion. There you go. Who are of truth and who hate injustice. We look for that, don't we? And this is where it came from. It is, to me, unbelievable. Now, here's something else. Each tribe is to choose out of its own men whose character can only be known by their lives, is known only to those who have associated with them. This is the biblical source of the residential requirements for representatives and senators. In other words, if you want to run for the House of Representatives in Atlanta, you got to move there.
You got to live there.
You got to live there. Exactly correct. Here it says that they have to be known to the people who are associated with them. And you know that in nearly every district, whether it's state senator, whether it's assembly person, you have to show residence in the area that you are going to represent. And where did that come from?
The House of Representatives.
Did you know that?
I did not.
But wait.
Wait, there's more.
There is more. You betcha there is more. Moreover, the idea of district elections conforms to the Jewish law of agency, which is found in the Talmud, that says that the true concept that people should have delegates and trustees. And that's where that comes from. And watch this. Once the people are elected, they cannot impose things and vote for things that the majority cannot conform to. We're involved in that right now, aren't we? Government is saying you must wear masks. Not all government, but at least in Palm Beach County, you must wear masks. The majority can conform to that. So when the laws are passed, it has to be passed for the good of the majority, not the good of the minority. And that's where the expression comes, majority rules. You can't let the minorities take over. That's not allowed at all. And you might say to yourself, okay, Andy, where does this whole idea about governors come from? I have an answer. What do you think the answer is?
Governors. To govern.
The idea of federalism goes back to the Torah and the 12 tribes. Each tribe has its own distinct identity. You know what they had? They had their own symbols. They had their own shields. Everyone had a different one, remember? What does every state have?
A different flag.
A different flag.
A different state of bird. A different flower.
And guess what? They're known by their leaders of each individual tribe, which is called in modern day times a governor. The governor of Florida, the governor of New York, the governor of, you don't have to go on all the states, right? So every one of them has its own judicial system, which we have too. Here's where it came from. But wait.
There's more.
There's more. You got to hang in there because there's a lot of good stuff coming up here. Here we go. That the president of the United States has to have residence is a law. That law, again, goes back to the Torah. And the Torah says that this person must become a unitary executive. What does all that mean? That they will have a cabinet. And the cabinet should have exactly what it's about, meaning no political party affiliation. Now, I understand that if you're a Republican, you're going to take people that support you. I got that. But you never say that the director of finance or the cabinet secretary of finance or treasury, you never say that person's a Republican. You never say they're a Democrat. And you know where that came from? Right here in the Torah. So how do we know the president has to be a born in the United States? Because it says kings of Israel have to be Jewish, born Jewish, not converted Jewish, and must be Jewish from a Jewish mother. And when they made the laws, that's what they did. Now, we talked about the two branches, right? We talked about the executive branch and we talked about the legislative branch. Which branch of government is missing?
Judicial.
Judicial. And what do we have? We have the Supreme Court, also known as the Sanhedrin.
The High Court.
The High Court. The High Court. And it was the Sanhedrin that, in fact, is the model for where we have. How do we know? It's very simple. You go to the Supreme Court building, and what's on top of the Supreme Court?
Justice, justice, I shall pursue.
Yeah, not I, but justice, justice shall you pursue.
Shall you pursue.
Where does that come from?
Must be there.
Right, the Torah. Oh, but wait, you don't believe me. The Liberty Bell. Liberty Bell says, proclaim freedom throughout the land and more. Where does that come from?
Here.
Here. Well, there you go. There you go. So we're guests or not in this country. The United States government is formed around the principles of Torah and Talmud.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So how come the general population doesn't know that?
Oh.
Wow. Would that make a
Ouch.
difference?
Ouch. Well, they do.
They do?
Yes. In an indirect way.
Oh.
You ready for this?
Oh.
Why? Go ahead.
I think because of something that is on a dollar bill.
I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
No. Because that they don't know.
I don't know what else.
Because this is really, talk about Jewish American, American Jewish. I've got the answer. Ready for this? Because when they take a look at what were the founding principles of the United States of America, it is called the Judeo-Christian.
Oh.
And which word comes first?
Judeo.
Yes, which means Jewish. Now, on the other hand, if you or me or you took this video and put it out on YouTube and advertised it and say, listen, you Americans, the immigrants, the native borns, the ones that came over from the boat, this is all part of Judaism, what do you think they will say?
I don't think they care.
I have the opposite.
Oh, you think they'd be surprised, but I don't know if that it would do anything.
No, they would do something.
What?
There they go again, those Jews taking over the world.
Oh. You mean the other people?
Yeah, the other people. There they go again.
There
they go again, taking over the world. Right? Boom. They come over here. Watch this. There were only 6,000 Jews in the United States at the time of the Revolution, American Revolution. 6,000 Jews. That was it. A minuscule part of the population. And look how much influence we have. Now, we're only 2 to 3% of the American population now. Look how much influence we have. Look how much the candidates want to go after the Jewish vote. Why? Because they know we vote a lot. So, if you were looking for ammunition to be a anti-Semite, I'll say the word, here it is right there. And by the way, that's one of the many reasons Hitler did not like the Jews. One of the many reasons, because they were overtaking him. Do we have a history of doing that? Yeah, we do. We don't do it by design. We really don't. It's what happened in Spain. It's what happened in a lot of the countries. That's what happened in England before they kicked us out. So I think we're better off
being quiet,
except for us here together. Okay. But I think one of the things that we were able to cover, which is very important. Yeah, voting is a Jewish, not right, not privilege. What word do you think I'm coming up with? Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Judy, to vote is a Jewish responsibility. We are mandated to vote. We are mandated to support the government. We are mandated to bond together through prayer and through actions that no matter who wins, we must support them for the next 4 years. And we could see what has happened over the past 4. And again, we're not doing candidates or one who's better or not than the other. It's none of our business to discuss it with anybody. But man, wouldn't it be great if at least the next 4 years, no matter who wins, there's unity? That's a Jewish responsibility. I also think it's a Jewish responsibility for us to know that the government that we live under or with, I don't know if under is the right word.
No,
I have to question
government
myself. We elected, there we go. That the government we elected is based on the fundamentals and foundations of our tribes. And I think that's important. And that's where the Jewish responsibilities to voting and elections all come out. I wish I was able to take questions from you. I know there are a lot of candidates who are Jewish, and I want to add one or two more points. And that is, when you have a Jewish candidate, it's very important for us to take a look at that candidate, to take a look on how they stand on the issues, and to understand that they represent or should represent Jewish interests as well as American interests. Because I think we all know that without America, Israel would have a problem in existing. No matter who the president is, doesn't matter. So we have the responsibility, as the prayers did say, to be supportive of the government of the United States, ask them to support justice and what's right, and to ask them to support the state of Israel. So what do you think? Did we cover a lot of ground today?
We did, and we found out some surprising facts.
Yes. Now that we know these facts, how do you feel about that?
It makes me want, it makes me want to participate even more, to show my responsibility.
To show your responsibilities. And I hope it does you. So here's the point. You know what? It'd be nice to share these responsibilities with all your grandkids who are under the age of 18 and great-grandkids. Why? Because the next election, if they're 14 and over, they might have the opportunity or will have the opportunity, depending upon when their birthday is, to vote. And I think if we continue to stress Jewish principles in a variety of different areas, and we express what we just learned today, that of course helped us, that of course helps you, that of course helps the future and growth of the United States of America, which has invited us in to live here in peace, in harmony, and practicing our Jewish religion. We owe it to them, we owe it to us. My name is Andy Greenberg, and with me is
Carol.
Last name?
Why?
Because you gotta have your last
Greenberg.
name. Greenberg. And we'll see you the very next time. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this. Take care, and God bless America.